Hello and welcome to the first ever Switched On Network podcast. I'm Paul FP and I'll already be a familiar face if you're a subscriber to the channel. And I'm here with my co-host and regular guest, Ben Anderson, who's going to be known as Ben the Noob. And we'll explain why in just a minute. So
I mean, I literally, in terms of consumer tech, have very little idea what I'm doing, what I'm buying, the consequences of what I'm buying. And I'm hoping that you can help me out because you are that guy that I always call when I need technical help.
Yes, you know, this isn't working. How does it work? And So Ben, tell us a bit about yourself and what your background is, and why you've come onto the Switched On Network podcast to co-found it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, my background's radio. I was in the radio industry for 10 years. When it comes to kind of radio technology, studios, broadcasting technology, I know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, it's what I've been trained in. I can run a radio studio, no problem. But when it comes to my laptop, you know, that's when I start to encounter issues. It is literally the kind of the daily stuff for me that, I mean, I'm not awful. At the same time, I'm nowhere near as good as I should be.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm not in the radio industry anymore. I am running my own business.
Oh, what's your business do?
Make podcasts.
Does it?
Yes,
excellent.
It does.
Wow.
And it's
Didn't
going really well.
Yeah.
But I suppose, you know, doing this podcast for me is another way of making sure that I am keeping up to date with everything, and technology-wise, it's always moving so quickly.
Yeah.
But with my business, I really need to be on it.
Yes,
So I'm hoping you can help me out.
Well, I'll do my best. Yeah. I mean, viewers who are watching this on a video platform, so that'll be YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, anything like that, will be able to tell straight away from looking that Ben doesn't have a clue about technology because he's turned up with a MacBook. And he's also got an iPhone in his pocket, so that just goes to show.
Well, I love Apple. Honestly, everything I've got is Apple. Apple TV at home.
Yeah,
I just find it so easy to use.
I didn't know you got an Apple TV as well. I don't know if I can be a friend anymore. No,
is it really that bad? Is your hatred for Apple that deep?
It runs deep and on many levels. But we will discuss that in an upcoming either a podcast or a feature length Switched On Network video. So. Anyway, we move on before we alienate half our audience.
Well, I mean, I'm representing them, and I'm quite happy with my MacBook. Yeah. Thanks, Apple.
Let us know in the comments if you like or if you loathe Apple. But let's move on to what we're going to be talking about today. Yeah. And there was one particular topic that when Ben and I first started discussing this podcast, Ben was really keen to ask me about, and we thought, well, let's cover that in the first episode, and that is smart speakers, smart home tech, the smart home and world revolution, which has been ongoing now for probably 10 or 15 years, really, when you think about the early roots. Our conversation started with the speakers, didn't it? Because for me, you know, podcasting, I'm always listening to podcasts, not just the ones that we make. And kind of, I've got Sonos at the moment. I've got them a couple of different rooms in the house. Yeah. Have they bricked yours yet? Or
still fine at the moment. But I did see that article the other day.
Yeah.
But no, I think for me, it would be really useful to have a smart speaker in my house and, you know, going around, Alexa, play the latest episode of whatever.
Yeah.
But I suppose I've got a few kind of...
Yeah, you're worried that they might be spying on us and we might be just sacrificing too much of our data and giving it up, aren't you? Yeah.
I mean, I really, because you've sent me a few videos of kind of smart home technology. Like, I didn't realise that you could open your front door, open your garage with, smart technology. I had absolutely no idea that technology was on the market.
Yeah. Basically,
because I'm a dinosaur.
If it was in Thunderbirds, then it probably now exists.
Well, yeah,
that sort of thing, isn't it?
And I think that's probably another podcast, really, in terms of all the different stuff you can do with your Nest and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Because I've got quite a few questions about just smart speakers, because I am concerned that it's kind of like inviting someone from, you know, Amazon who works there, or Apple or Google, into your house.
Yeah.
So,
well, and there are legitimate questions to be asked. I mean, they are, for what you get, very cheap devices, and you think, you know,
too cheap.
Are they cheap because they just wanted to get them in the house? And, you know, you could look at that in one of many ways. You can look at it in the more sort of, you know, maybe with your business hat on, or you can look at it with your conspiracy theorist tinfoil hat on.
Yeah.
And, you know,
which sounds like a more fun hat.
It sounds like a more fun hat. Yeah, definitely look cooler on a night out. You can tell I don't go on nights out very much anymore. Yeah. Yeah. If you ever see me walking around Liverpool city centre,
something's wrong.
Yeah, with a tinfoil hat on. it's because we're recording our Roaming the Streets podcast.
That's it. Yeah. The aliens aren't coming.
No. But so I mean, they make money off associated services and stuff.
Yeah.
So they do sell us these devices for, probably much less than they cost to produce and much less than they're worth if you add up all the sum of their parts. In the same way, I guess, that printer manufacturers sell you the actual printer at a massive loss, because then you're tied into getting ripped off buying the ink from them. So it's a similar sort of thing, I guess. But what are your key concerns then that you want to ask me? What's your major concern, I think?
So I suppose the first one is very simple, which is, are they listening all the time?
Yes. Next question.
Okay. But isn't that a bit concerning in terms of, when you're at home, because these are in private spaces. This is not in obviously you can use them in offices and everything else, but people have got them in their living rooms, people have got them in their kitchens.
Yeah. We've got one in our bedroom.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And I'm not going to ask, go into too much detail about what happens in there.
Yeah.
But, even quiet. This week, me and my girlfriend have been cooking, and we've been talking about finances. We've been talking about holidays. We've been all sorts of different things. Dates for holidays when we won't be in the house.
In the house, yes.
There's all sorts of different conversations that everyone has on a day-to-day basis that actually you don't want the world knowing.
Yeah.
So the fact that they are listening all the time is my first concern. And I think it's quite a valid one.
It's absolutely a valid one. There's no such thing as a daft question.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, don't worry. And throughout the course of this podcast, there will definitely be
challenge that
few.
hypothesis. Yeah. But I think the key thing I would say there is define they.
Okay. Well, Amazon, Google, Apple.
So the device is listening all the time, as in it's ready to accept input in the way that it's perhaps not a perfectly valid analogy, but if you open up Microsoft Word and the cursor's there flashing, it's ready to accept input, as in it's ready to. Obviously that's typing input, so it's very different.
Yeah.
But in the same way, the speaker has to be listening, as in the microphone has to be activated all the time, so that it can hear the wake up phrase, which I'm not going to say because I'll wake up everyone's devices around the nation and around the world. But
let's hope.
Well, let's hope. Yeah.
Hello, Venezuela.
Hello. Yes. So the device has got to be listening all the time. Now, specifically, I've got most experience with Google Home devices. I do own one Alexa device. It's an Echo Dot. But on the Google devices, at least, they have the lights on top. If it's the Mini, it's the 4 little lights in the middle of the circle, and on the sort of the original Home, it's the 4 coloured lights on the top, which is sort of angled. And when you say the wake up phrase, the lights will turn on, and that's how you know it's now properly listening. And anything you say whilst the lights are on, the way it works is, I think on the older devices, it then sends that audio clip to Google's servers where the speech recognition takes place, because obviously that's a bit more processor intensive. It needs more than a little 20 quid device to do that. And then it obviously turns that into text, processes it, and does whatever you've asked it to do. I believe on some of the newer ones, they've got more advanced chips inside, so they can do a lot of that without having to send the audio to Google or Amazon's or whoever's servers. So that's a good thing. But primarily, the they in my answer to that question being yes, is that the device is listening all the time. Yeah. That doesn't mean that Amazon and Google and people like that are listening all the time. It means the device is listening, so that when you say the phrase, it will then wake up and allow you to do something.
Okay. I mean, that does make sense, because if it's not listening, then how does it know? But then I suppose, how long is it then listening for? Is it 5 seconds while you ask your command? Because you're not going to, be natting away to your Alexa for half an hour, are you?
Yeah.
How long does it then record for, or take that data going back to Google and back again?
Well, there's a thing on Google devices called continued conversation, where it just makes it a more flowing experience. So if you've asked it for one thing, for instance, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow, and it'll say the weather in Liverpool is going to be blah blah blah, and then without having to then wake it up again, you can say, and what about Wednesday, and what about Thursday? Or you can do things like turn the TV off, and then you can then say, and turn the lights on. I mean, you can string your commands together with the word and, or you can then just do a back and forth conversation about, the weather's a good example, because then it will be in context. So you just say, what about tomorrow? And it knows you're talking about what's the weather like in Liverpool tomorrow. And I think it's something like 10 seconds. The lights are on basically when it's listening. And once the lights have gone off, it's not listening anymore. Well, when I say that, I mean, it's not taking note of what you're saying and, potentially sending it to be transcribed by machines and stuff.
Okay, I mean, talking about the weather then.
Yeah.
Because I don't just want to be a Luddite with this. I can see that there are benefits. Like, for example, you're talking about the weather. My nan has got an Alexa.
Yeah.
And it's great for her because, she won't mind me saying she's knocking on a bit. Technology does baffle her a bit.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have a laptop. We got her an iPad, but even she struggled with the iPad. So to be able to just kind of very simply ask Alexa what the weather's like later on, for her is really useful. I've got a friend who's in a wheelchair, and for him, he uses them around the house a lot, and it's really helpful.
Yeah, well, the applications in healthcare are definite. That reminds me, we put out a few days ago on our Switched On Network Facebook group, which you can join if you haven't already. We're asking people their opinions about smart speakers. Let me just tell you what someone said. Someone here says, I've personally seen them used for reminding elderly people to take medication. Yeah. Voice-controlled radio, clock, obviously podcasts. Let us know if you're listening to this podcast on a smart speaker. Tweet us at SwitchedOnNet and let us know. And obviously, music as well, for people with visual impairments. So, I think that's a very valid point that it can be really useful for people with reduced mobility, disabilities and the elderly, people like that.
But just going back to the example of my nan, she won't talk. She won't have conversations. She'll say, "Oh, hang on a sec. Let's go in. Let's get out of the kitchen. Let's go in the lounge because the Alexa's in here."
Oh, okay.
So I suppose that leads on to my next question, where it makes perfect sense that they are listening and that there's some server somewhere that's receiving the information, making it something that the computer can recognise, sending it back, and you getting as the user what you want at the end of it. I did see a story in, I think it was Bloomberg last year, about Amazon admitting that employees are listening. So people, humans human beings, listening to that audio.
Yeah. And that's the case with all smart speakers, Google, Amazon, and Apple as well.
So when you're saying that it's only listening to you when you give it a command, well, at the same time, I'm not sure I don't mind if it's a computer. Yeah. But I don't want a human listening. Why are humans listening?
I'll get onto that. Just when you were talking about your nan and leaving the room, then that reminded me of something which is quite a funny story. I think it was my dad's grandmother. Dad, if you're listening, you can correct me if I'm getting this story wrong. But I remember so I don't remember. Obviously, I was long since. But I remember my dad telling me the story of. I think it was when they had got a TV, and it was one of the only electrical items in the house, or did they always unplug it afterwards for some? Anyway, it was something that she would unplug, and she had a little metal tray on the floor next to the electrical socket on the wall, and she'd unplug the item, and then she'd put the power lead, with the 3 pins, and she'd place it on the tray.
Right.
And the reason she'd do that is just in case any electricity leaked out and stained the carpet. Yeah, I kid you not.
But you know what? It's those kind of things that I suppose practically, if you've never really
sat here in 2020, that sounds utterly ridiculous. Yeah. But 50, 60, 70, however many years ago it was, that for someone, electricity was probably still fairly new, a new concept and idea, and you've been told that it's flowing through the wires and stuff, and you think, well, flow, it's like like water. Yeah. So that's maybe perfectly reasonable.
But, for her to, I used to be on the radio every morning for a few years back in Birmingham, where we come from. And I had a cousin who thought that I was in there. It's just it's the kind of innocence of a kid. That's Ben's voice.
He must be inside there.
Yeah, it must be. I suppose same kind of thing.
So I think it follows on that the world of technology, as you say, moves massively fast. And for someone who lives and breathes it and loves it, I probably don't keep up as well with it as I used to years ago. But it seems crazy to leave a kitchen because they're here, but I think it's reasonable for someone who's of a different generation. All us young kids have started creating all these fancy technology products, and we've not properly maybe explained them. So I think the example with your nan, it's perfectly reasonable for her to think, well, it's listening, because it is. Yeah. But she's obviously not had it properly explained to her exactly what the mechanics are behind that, and maybe
you're going to do that now.
Maybe it's not worth it, but
I'll play this to her. My nan.
Definitely, yeah.
But okay, so are humans listening then?
So are humans listening? Sometimes. Okay. So like all technical products, the manufacturers want to continually improve them. And I'm sure any person who owns a smart speaker has had the experience where they're talking to it and it's not properly understood them, and they think, well, that's rubbish, and you say it again and again. So they are pretty good, and they get what you say most of the time. Sometimes, I'm not got any examples, but sometimes it's quite funny when you ask for a particular song or something and it plays something. What did it hear? And you can actually go into your account and look at activity and see what it heard, which is quite amusing. But obviously, it wants to improve all the time. And if someone, you've got to remember, these things have got to be able to understand a wide variety of not just languages, for the English or the French or the Spanish or the Chinese version, but they've got to understand different accents, regional variations, ways of saying a phrase, and they've got to be able to hear over, background noise and all the rest of it. I think probably the regional accents is maybe the most difficult one when you're trying to program a system to understand speech. We're both from Birmingham and we've moved to Liverpool. Yeah, I can see the glint in your eye there.
Alexa.
Yeah.
Play yours.
What do I say, Alexa?
I'm your bab.
So what happens is if it detects that someone's saying something there and it's not being understood, then rather than just throw that away, they have a system where it will learn from that almost mistake. So my understanding of it is that those little recordings would then be sent to human transcribers, but they would be anonymized beforehand.
Yeah.
So it may be that someone somewhere in the world who can understand English would be sent a recording of you saying in your Brummie accent, "What do I say, Alexa? Add eggs to the shopping list." And Alexa or Google or whatever hadn't been able to understand that. But a human being, because obviously our brains are far more advanced and can cope. The thing with computers is they're very thick and they will do exactly what they're told and not deviate from that. Well, at the moment. Whereas we can think outside the box. So a human would be able to go, oh, well, they were saying add eggs, so they will write out, and transcribe this audio equals add eggs to shopping list, and then the way it analyzes the audio of that recording. And I presume that will then get put alongside the original, whereas the human being, as I understand it, will have only heard like a garbled, anonymized version of that. So as long as... It's
been a lot of trust, though, isn't it, in these companies? I mean, let's say, so you say they record for 10 seconds or whatever.
Or thereabouts,
so let's say you're in the kitchen and you go, hey, Alexa, add eggs to the shopping list.
Yeah.
Oh, babe, by the way, we're definitely going away for 5 days on the 27th of February.
Yeah.
All right, see you later. It's putting a lot of trust in these companies. I mean,
it is.
Here, GDPR in the UK has been massive the last year in terms of protecting your data, and it's been a bit of a faff, but it's probably the right thing to do. We're putting a lot of trust in companies who are based in different countries, who might not necessarily have the same laws. Do you just trust Amazon? Do you just trust Google?
I mean, do I personally, or just one?
You personally first, and then
I guess it's not so much a level of trust. I think I balance the probability in there. So it is, to take your example where it's still listening, and you mentioned the fact that you're going to be away. I suppose it is a trust.
I'm not going away on the 25th of February, by the way.
No.
Yeah. Or am I? Is it a double bluff?
Oh, yeah. Break into his house just in case.
There's literally nothing there that you'd want.
Yeah.
Just a load of kids' toys.
And podcasting equipment.
Podcasting stuff and Aston Villa fan memorabilia.
So it's definitely nothing that anyone would want. I think it's the balance of probability that, in theory, it is possible that my voice recordings could get matched up with my account and my address. So I guess it does come down to trust that they're not doing that, because I think if they were to do that and it were to come out, it would be so catastrophic for their public image that they would be crazy to. Plus, I don't think they really need to. I, as a techie and as someone who maybe less so now, but has built technical products in the past and technical services and things, I can understand it from a techie's point of view, where I want this product to work, and I want it to work well, and I want it to improve in this way. And there'll always be someone that comes along with it. Oh, well, do you really want to do this? Have you got an ulterior motive? And I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, I think, especially fellow techies. Maybe I'm a bit naive and a bit too trusting sometimes.
Just because I think, you can put your trust, the company wouldn't want this to get out, but you always get the rogue employee.
True, yeah, there's always a possibility. But then there's always going to be the possibility of a rogue employee anywhere at any time. I mean, the postman that comes to the door every day and smiles and says hello to me, and for all I know, he could be. I'm not suggesting he is, but he could be keeping track of exactly when I take the kids to school and the house. But if you go down the rogue employee line, I think there's no stopping you really.
Okay, well that leads me on to another question.
Okay,
which is, I suppose, if there's a speaker in your lounge, and Amazon are taking data from it, and real life people are listening to it to improve the quality of the service. I understand that.
Yeah.
Can someone hack it? So first of all, let's keep on that rogue employee line.
Yeah.
Someone goes, you know what? That girl I've seen on Instagram is really fit.
Yeah.
And I know that she, I don't know, like, can you target people basically to go, I am interested? Or let's say, I don't know, someone's running for office.
Yeah.
And their competition want to hear the kind of conversations they're having with their wife at home about the campaign or this, that, and the other. First of all, what's the likelihood of someone hacking into it, and can it be done?
Well, the answer, I suppose, to the can it be done question is always going to be yes, because everything is possible. Some things are less possible than others, but nothing is completely impossible. Nothing is unhackable. Right. There are systems, and there are levels and methods of encryption that a little while ago would have taken longer than the age of the universe for the world's best computers to crack, and then fast forward 5 years and they'll do it in a few seconds type thing. I might be slightly exaggerating there, but it's that sort of, nothing is unhackable, especially when you start talking about quantum computers and the way they work, because they're fundamentally different from the computers we've had since, the birth of, what was the computer called? Baby. It was in Manchester somewhere, wasn't it? The birth of modern
computing, I'm afraid.
So...
Let's say yes.
Everything, it could potentially be hacked. So, I mean, you see in films and stuff, don't you, where people go and stand in the middle of a field on a windy day, and that's the only place they know they can definitely go where they won't be listened to. So it depends on your level of paranoia, and maybe if you're running for high office, it'd be prudent to be a bit more paranoid. I think it's very unlikely that if a nation state or someone wanted to hack into the private everyday goings on of a political candidate, they probably wouldn't do it through their Amazon Alexa.
Right.
But maybe
I
they would.
suppose you've always had people in vans outside that say bagels on the side
yes,
with radar equipment
listening.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah,
so
just maybe the modern day equivalent. You can turn the microphones off on most, if not all, smart speakers, by the way.
Right.
On the Google Home Mini and the Google Nest Mini, there's a physical switch on the back, which actually, the difference between a physical switch and a button is quite important to make, because a physical switch, you've actually got your copper cables being broken. So that there's no software that can override that. If the microphone is physically disconnected from the device, it's now not there. On some of the others, the Echo Dot 3rd generation, which I've got in my office, and also the original Google Home, that's a button on the back where... you're pressing a button, that's sending a signal into the internals of the device saying, now disregard the microphone, but it's not physically disconnected. So if you're really paranoid, you can physically, on some of them, turn off the microphone. And then whilst it's off, it will obviously be a lot more of a dumb device. You can still sort of send music to it and stuff, but then you might want to turn it off if you're having, sit down for a family meeting, or if, you're, I don't know, if discussing anything particularly controversial.
I mean, you've got to remember to do it, I suppose.
That's it. You've got to remember to do it. Or you might have someone that comes around to your house, and I mean, a lot of the I can't remember if it was Jeff Bezos of Amazon or if it was the head of Google, who were saying, they think it is polite, and maybe people should inform people when they come around to the house. We do have smart speakers in this house.
You see, you were winning me round, and then suddenly, you hear the CEO of a big company going, "Oh yeah, let people know that they're here."
I mean, I think it would be a little bit of an overreaction if someone insisted on being told. I think in this day and age, it's probably safe to assume that if you go into anyone's house, they've probably got a smart speaker, and if you're of the persuasion, I don't want to be dismissive or insulting of people's views, but if you're of the persuasion where you think you don't want to, then maybe you should ask the person, to turn the microphones off or not go in their house. It's up to you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm wrong here, but what you were saying earlier is that the people are listening when data is sent that the Alexa or whatever can't understand.
Yeah.
Is like when my email crashes or whatever, I'll get a little notification that says, do you want to send this to Google or whatever, so that they, and I tend to click no.
Why? Why'd you click no?
Yeah, just, that paranoia.
You should be helpful to the tech. Yeah.
But is there a way that, for example, in your Alexa, you can go, actually, I don't want a real life human listening.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I've not got anything to hide.
Yeah.
I've lived a pretty,
sure?
Yeah, I live a pretty boring life, but I suppose
these are just the idea.
These are just the question. Yeah, it's exactly that. It's even though no one would want to invade my privacy, I don't like the idea of it happening.
And that's perfectly fair enough.
But can you say, if it's only when they want to improve the product, is there anything that, rather than turning it off and on every time you're having a conversation about money or whatever, is there something you can do where you go, actually, I just don't want to send them information?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you can go into the settings, in Google or Alexa, and go, I'd rather opt out of this if that's what you want to do. Maybe we should stick a little article on the Switched On Network website telling you how to do that. I think people would appreciate that. We'll get that up. That's a good idea. Yeah.
I mean, we've covered quite a lot, and I think I suppose that initial question now does feel a bit stupid in terms of, are they always listening? Because
there's no such thing as a stupid question.
But there will be, like I said earlier, there will be a few. But I suppose, is there anything else that I haven't asked that from? Because you obviously know what my concerns are, which is it's like having a fellow in a suit from Google sitting in the corner of your room.
Yeah. So hopefully now you understand how it's not quite the same as that.
Yeah,
but
I do.
Yeah.
It's like someone just popping in for 10 seconds and going, oh, actually, didn't quite understand that. Can you say it again? Or, and I'm going, all right, nice one, see you later.
Yeah, see you later, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I can completely understand how in certain circumstances people wouldn't want that to be said. And there have been cases where, was it in America a few years ago, where an Alexa device recorded audio when someone was being murdered.
What?
And I think there was a big hoo-ha about it, and I think Amazon initially, I can't remember if they did in the end or not, refused to give the police or the FBI or whatever that audio, citing privacy. But
oh my God,
I mean that's potentially a whole other episode to discuss. Should if there is evidence locked inside a digital thing, when if ever is the line drawn between privacy and allowing that to be given? Because
it's a pretty dark example to end the podcast on.
Well, we're not going to end it yet. We're going to go on to a lighter note before then. I mean, so before you ask me your last question, I wanted to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Skillshare, Ben?
No.
You've never heard of Skillshare?
No.
Well, Skillshare, let me tell you all about Skillshare.
Please do.
Have I said Skillshare enough times?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it as well. Skillshare.
Skillshare.
Yeah, I haven't heard of Skillshare.
Yeah, well, you can share your skills with people.
On Skillshare?
On Skillshare.
Fantastic. Yeah. Tell me more.
It's a bit like Netflix for learning and developing new skills. So it fits ideally into Switched On Network's mission, because the idea that Switched On Network as a brand was launched was to help keep people switched on. Yeah. So if there's a particular area or topic somewhere where you want to learn and do a course, but you don't want to pay thousands and enroll in a university or whatever, and you want to do it in your spare time at ease, then you can go on Skillshare and do a course. So for instance, you might want to do a course on audio production and how to run a radio station.
I mean, it's always good to top up your skills, I suppose.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. So
that's the one thing that I'm actually good at, so please don't take that away from me.
Well, you could become a teacher on Skillshare. You could make a bit of money on the side.
Great.
Creating courses, because that's what people do. People who are experts in their particular field create a course. It might be like a 10-episode course where you can watch along, learn new skills, interact with the teacher on some of them, and learn. There are 3 million people using Skillshare. Little bite-sized chunks.
Got any more stats on
there?
As
and when you want. Yeah, I'm just reading the stats off my screen there. Classes in design, business, technology, and more. And it's very affordably priced.
Great.
Depending on how you pay, whether it's monthly or annual, between £7 and £13 a month. But as a Switched On Network subscriber, you can get your first 2 months completely free.
How about that?
No obligation. So you can try it out, have a look at some courses for that particular skill that you want to get more switched on to do. So click the link in the video description or show notes for 2 months completely free Skillshare.
Fab.
Yeah. So will you be doing that after this episode?
Absolutely. You've sold it to me.
And you can learn how to process audio.
Yeah, all sorts of things. Well, I mean, I've also got you.
You've also got me.
So that's good.
Yeah.
But I've actually got nothing else to ask for today.
Nothing else to ask?
No, I mean, I want them in my house, smart speakers. I think, we said we were going to talk about general smart home technology another time.
Yeah.
I think that might just be a little bit beyond me still at the moment. But I think the thing I was worried about, you've made me feel a bit silly for, which is they're obviously, of course they are listening because they've got to work. Yeah. But actually knowing that it's only a certain amount of time.
And the they in that isn't necessarily a person.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly reasonable, incorrect but reasonable assumption that some people might make that there are people sat in there with headphones on listening to that person, and a direct, constant live feed. That's not the case. And if you wanted to, you could go to the extent of analysing the network traffic on your home network to see, is this device, because obviously when you say, I don't know, upload a video to YouTube from your laptop is sending data across your network to your Wi-Fi router and then off to the internet. So you can see, is my Alexa or is my Google Home sending data constantly? And so they wouldn't get away with that, even if they tried on there. I think the final point that I will make is that you've already got one in your pocket all the time.
That's true.
Yeah.
Is that an Alexa in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
Yes.
So my phone, obviously.
You've got a Siri in your pocket, haven't you?
I do. Yeah. I use Siri actually quite a lot.
Yeah. So you're effectively walking around with an Apple smart speaker in your pocket, unless you've gone and turned that off in your settings, which I presume you can do.
No, I haven't.
But you do quite a good impression of Siri, don't you?
I'm too embarrassed to do it now. Hello, Paul.
Hello. I don't do a good impression at all.
Why do you want to listen to this podcast, Paul?
Yeah.
No, that's terrible.
So
better at the X Factor man.
Go on then.
Oh, hi, Paul. Anyway, that's for a different day.
I think we should do a whole podcast episode with just Ben's impressions.
Well, I once interviewed the man who does that voice.
Oh, yeah.
As I was called Budget X Factor voiceover man on the radio show. So Budget X Factor voiceover man interviewed X Factor man. He wasn't particularly happy about that.
Was he not?
Thing.
No. It didn't give you any pointers on how to impersonate.
No, we've just left that in the past.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
I'll just have to see if I can dig that out. Is it available? Anyway?
You'll find it somewhere.
I'll find it. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for answering my questions.
My pleasure. So next week we're going to be discussing the gig economy.
Okay, great. Because I'm very interested in that.
So that's
kind of how my business is based on the gig economy.
But this is in particular these Silicon Valley startup companies that create an app with a very clever service that then it's people on the ground that actually provide the service. And I want to discuss
Ubers.
Yeah, Uber Eats, Deliveroo, I suppose Just Eat.
Got you.
What's the other? Lyft, the other ride-sharing app that's competing with Google, Uber. Yeah, so I want to discuss and the tech angle on this is, are they too far removed from the actual service on the ground to provide good customer service? So that's what we'll be discussing in next week's episode. But I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. If you have done, then please do subscribe on your podcast app, or if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram TV, subscribe and give us a follow on there. And we want to know what you have to think, because we might do a follow-up on this episode. So let us know. You can join our Facebook group, and the link's down below in the show notes and video description. Join in the discussion, give us your thoughts. Tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm right. We'll do a follow-up, I think, because this is a hot topic and it's only going to continue getting hotter.
You're the boss.
Yeah, so I think we should do that again. But
I'm just here to ask questions.
Representing
the everyman.
The everyman on the streets. So thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this episode.
What are they called again?
Skillshare.
Yes.
Yeah. What are they called?
Skillshare.
That's it. Just testing. Get 2 months free to get more switched on to the world around you. And if you're enjoying the videos and podcasts on Switched On Network and you want to support us, we also have a Patreon. We'd be very grateful if you want to give us your support on there. There's a link for that in the show notes. You get some exclusive perks and benefits as well. And we might even read your name out on a future podcast episode. I know people love having the name read out on the world's premiere Switched On podcast. So definitely have a look at that. And so thanks for watching and or listening. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. It's been our first ever Switched On Network podcast.
I think we did all right.
I think we've done okay. Let us know if you agree. Let us know if we've been terrible or good. And we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, see you then.
Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Switched On Network podcast, produced by Sound Rebel and Innobella Media. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, then please subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, or your chosen podcast app, and give us a thumbs up, click like, or give us a rating and a review. You can follow us at Switched On Network on Facebook and Instagram, and at Switched On Net on Twitter. Discover more great podcasts at soundrebel.co.uk.